Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nur Emilia Adelina binti Norizan and I am the first presenter. So I will start with the table of activities and entities first. For the table of entities and activities, we just list out all the actions being performed by the internal entities and the external entities. Sampin Songket Enterprise has 5 entities, which is Inventory Control Department, Purchasing Department, Receiving Department, Storeroom and Account Payable Department. For the activities of each department, we just take out from the statement given. So here's the example of table of entities and activities that we did. Next, I'm going to explain about the context diagram for the purchase and cash disbursement system. The context diagram shows the system under consideration as a single high-level process and then shows the relationship that the system has with other external entities. So for the external entities, we have supplier, storeroom and account payable department. The first copy of the purchase order is sent to the supplier and last copy of the purchase order is filed in purchase order file by the supplier's name. Next, the first copy of the receiving report together with the goods is sent to the storeroom and the second copy of the receiving report is sent to the account payable department. In the inventory control department, after obtaining the receiving report from the receiving department, the clerk updates inventory control account in general ledger and files the receiving report in a receiving report file. So here's the example of context diagram. Okay, so we move to the logical data flow diagram. A logical data flow diagram focuses on the business and how the business operates. It is not concerned with how the system will be constructed. Instead, it describes the business events that take place and the data required and produced by each event. The process starts when the inventory control clerk checks the inventory subsidiary ledger in her computer every day. This routine procedure intends to identify inventory items that need to be replenished. Once the item has been identified, the clerk sends an email to the purchasing clerk in the purchasing department requesting for a purchase order. The clerk then key in the details of the requested item together with the supplier's information and prints 3 copies of the purchase order to send to the supplier, receiving department, and last copy of the purchase order is filed in purchase order file by the supplier's name. In the receiving department, the receiving clerk temporarily files the purchase order until all the inventory items arrive. The clerk then manually prepares 4 hard copies of the receiving report to send to the storeroom, account payable department, and inventory control department. A 4th copy of the receiving report together with the packing slip and purchase order are filed in an inventory receipt file chronologically. In the storeroom, the storekeeper then files the receiving report in the department. In the inventory control department, after obtaining the receiving report from the receiving department, the clerk updates inventory control account in general ledger and files the receiving report in a receiving report file. In the account payable department, the accounts payable clerk temporarily files the receiving report from the receiving department. Then, the clerk uses the invoice to update the purchase journal, the account payable subsidiary ledger, and the account payable control account in general ledger. The clerk then files the receiving report and the supplier's invoice in the department. For the logical data flow diagram of cash disbursement system, the accounts payable clerk in the accounts payable department reviews the account payable subsidiary ledger in the computer to determine the liabilities that are due. Accordingly, the clerk prepares the payment voucher with a sequence numbering for each item due for payment. The clerk then prints a hard copy of the payment voucher. Next, the clerk takes checkbook from a locked cabinet and prepares a check for the payment voucher. The clerk then sends stamp to the manager for approval and signature. The signed check is mailed to the corresponding supplier. The approved payment voucher is then filed together with the respective receiving report and supplier's invoice. Finally, the clerk updates the payment in the account payable subsidiary ledger and the accounts payable control account in general ledger. So I think that's all from me, and we go for the next presenter. Thank you.
Good day, madam. My name is Kirvasri Dr. Subramaniam and my matrix number is 280937. So now I will continue with the flow chart. There will be 5 departments involving in the flow chart of the Sampin Sonke enterprise, such as Inventory Control Department, Purchasing Department, Receiving Department, Storeroom, and also Accounts Payable Department. So, the process starts when the Inventory Control clerk checks the inventory subsidiary ledger in his or her computer every day. Once the item has been identified to be refilled, the clerk sends an email to the purchasing clerk requesting for a purchase order. Then the purchasing clerk checks email of requesting for a purchase order. The clerk starts to proceed with the preparing a purchase order, and the information of the supplier will be collected from the supplier file. The clerk then keys in the details of the requested items together with the supplier information and prints 3 copies of the purchase order. So, the first copy will send to the supplier, the second copy will be sent to the receiving department, and the last copy, which is the third copy, will be filed as purchase order file. Then, followed by the receiving department, the receiving clerk temporarily files the purchase order until order inventory items arrived. When the goods arrive in the receiving department, the clerk inspects them and reconciles the items against the information in the purchase order and the packing slip. The clerks then manually prepare 4 hard copies of the receiving report. So, the first hard copy will be sent to the storeroom, the second copy will be sent to the accounts payable department, the third copy sent to the inventory control department, and the fourth copy, which is the last copy, together with the packing slip and purchase order, will be filed as the inventory received file. Then the storekeeper in the storeroom shelves the goods and updates the inventory subsidiary ledger in the computer. The storekeeper then files the receiving report in the department. Then back to the inventory control department. After obtaining the receiving report from the receiving department, the clerks update the inventory control account in general ledger and files the receiving report in a receiving report file. Next, in the accounts payable department, the accounts payable clerk temporarily files the receiving report from the receiving department. Upon receiving the invoice from the supplier, the clerk takes out the receiving report to match against the invoice. Then, the clerk uses the invoice to update the purchase journal. The accounts payable subsidiary ledger and the accounts payable control account in general ledger. The clerk then files the receiving report and the supplier's invoice in the department. Then, accounts payable clerk reviews the accounts payable subsidiary ledger in the computer to determine the liabilities that are due. Accordingly, the clerk prepares the payment voucher with the sequence numbering for each item due for payment. The clerk then prints a hard copy for the payment voucher. Next, the clerk prepares a check for a payment voucher. The clerk then sends them to the manager for approval and signature. The signed check is mailed to the corresponding supplier. The approved payment voucher is then filed together with the respective receiving report and supplier's invoice. Finally, the clerk updates the payment in the accounts payable subsidiary ledger and the accounts payable control account in general ledger. Now I will explain about the possible strands of the internal control procedure. The first internal control procedure of Sampin and Sonke Enterprise is to strengthen the procedure of getting approval and signature from the manager before making any payment This helps reduce fraud among the lower level of management, such as the account payable clerk, since they are required to get the approved payment voucher before making a payment. Moreover, the managers can have a look and make sure the payment is valid and accurate before signing the document. This way, potential fraud can be recognized. Moreover, Sampin and Socket Enterprise has significant documentation control. This is because after all the transactions in each department are made, the documents are stored in respective files. On the other hand, the clerk notes down every details provided in the email, including item codes, description, and quantity before proceeding with prepare a purchase order. This way, we can easily identify the transaction error more easily and quickly. Finally, the strength exhibited by the Sampin and Samke enterprise is controlling the inventory every day and acting immediately. This is because inventory control clerk checks the inventory subsidy ledger every day. Moreover, the purchase department will receive email from the inventory control clerk to place order, and the clerk will make a phone call for urgent items.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anizulaika binti Shukri and my metric number is 281557. So today I will continue about 5 possible weakness in Sampin and Songket enterprise of purchase and cash disbursement. So first, they use their personal email for work purpose. So they're using their own personal email instead of their company official email. And this purpose might mess up their order with the personal matter. Then we have the lack of segregation duties. As we can see that the same clerk doing too many tasks in the same time. So this kind of problem might cause some fraud or lagging in data transmission. And then we have the shortage of supervision. So there are no supervisor or manager to guide the clerk or the worker. So this might cause some lagging in the workers, or that what they do might um, differ from the original goal of the company. And then Sampin and Songket Enterprise better to have internal control checklist. This is to make sure that the cash disbursement process follow the company process. And the last one is the independent verification procedures. This for reviewing the management report regarding the employee performance and summarize of their business activity.
Assalamualaikum. I am Muhammad Sulemi bin Muhammad Mazuki, matrix number 280540. So I will continue with the risk exposures that might have resulted from each of the internal control weakness. So for the first one is using personal email. Company's email may set up to combat email viruses, but personal email may not have that level of protection. Therefore, it's difficult to backup email if any viruses attack. For the second one, we not implement segregation of duties. It will happen a fraud when one person gives sole responsibility of two conflicting tasks. For example, one person are doing inventory calculation and managing cash disbursement. It might be the person listing the wrong amount of cash disbursement to steal some of the company's money. For the third one, shortage of supervision. The quality of work might not going well. It is because employee doing a work lazily and bring down the quality of the product, and it will also bring down the company reputation. Then, doesn't have internal control checklist. It will cause confusion on preparing the check. The clerk didn't know if the check have been issued or not. It leads to the incorrect recording in company transaction. And for the last one, no independent verification procedures for both process, which are purchases and cash disbursement, and it will happen a fraud. The value of inventory recorded from receiving report exceed the real value after reconcile when moved to the inventory control department.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Rashika Shahira binti Rahiman and my metric number is 280073. I would like to continue this presentation by explaining the internal control procedures. What is the internal control procedures? Internal control procedures is the policies and procedures that is put in place to ensure the continued reliability of accounting system. Without an accurate accounting record, managers cannot make a fully informed financial decisions and financial report may contain errors. Internal control procedures are designed to prevent fraud and to identify errors from being a problem in the future. The first internal control procedures is by implementing economic entity principles. Economic entity principle is meant by business entity and business owners are two separate things, thus the record for each of them are separated. Sampin and Songke Enterprise can implement this by making an email especially for the company business operation so that the staff will not need to use their own personal email and uh, invade their privacy. Second is the segregation of duties. Segregation of duties is meant by assigning multiple procedures in a process to different persons. Example of process is the process of purchasing. There are multiple procedures in a purchasing process. For example, is by taking the orders, issuing the purchasing orders, and then receiving the orders, and lastly by recording all of the transactions above. By implementing this, we can reduce the chances of fraud from being committed and there is less pending work because for each of the procedures there is a different worker working on it. Example of segregation of duties that Sampin and Songket can implement is the task of purchasing orders and dealing orders records are given to two different workers. The third is by hiring a supervisor. A supervisor can help oversee the whole transaction process. He or she can also correct any errors and prevent fraud or misconduct from happening. The fourth is by implementing accounting control checklist. Accounting control checklist can help prevent from missing or overseeing any important transaction from being recorded. Other than that, it can also help from missing any recording transactions. For example, the transactions of paying the salary of indirect labor. Example of accounting control checklist that Sampin and Songke Enterprise can implement is by making a system of checking after a transaction is recorded. And the lastly is the implementing independent verification internal control. Independent verification internal control is done by the higher authority on a surprise basis or periodically. Example of higher authority is the manager or supervisor for each of the department. By implementing this, error can be minimized and the chances of fraud are reduced.
For the part B, to transform a business from a conventional platform to digital business operation, SMEs can start from online marketing. Information will spread faster on social media because of the feedback or sharing on social media between customers and friends so that it can expand abroad. Social media does not require allocation or high cost to get an account, for example, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and blogs. Only need email to generate the account. It is free and easy to obtain. The online business strategies are usually cheaper, more focused, and measurable. So we can say social media or networks help make business companies, especially SMEs, more transparent, gain trust and build credibility through communication with customers.
Next, possible way to transform the traditional business to an online business is creating a website. This is in order to the customer notice about our product. So we need to create the website that tell about our product. We need to be creative to attract our customer to view our website and attract them to buy our product.
For part B, I will explain about the e-commerce. E-commerce platform is also the best way to transform a business from a conventional platform to digital business operation. By using the e-commerce platform, we can easily market or sell our business worldwide. This platform helps to increase the revenue and decrease expenditure of the business. Expenditures such as creating the process, distribution, retrieving and digitalizing paper-based information can be reduced using this platform. Moreover, this leads the current generation to do billing and payment through the e-commerce platform easily, which creates a positive impact in the revenue cycle. At the same time, we can perform the transaction of the business without any physical store that reduces the expenditure using this e-commerce platform. Therefore, we can manage the expenses for e-commerce fees and the cost of production.
One of the possible ways of applying information technology to transform a business from a conventional platform to digital business operation that I will explain is customer relationship management, or the short form is CRM. So CRM is about company strategies, technology to analyze and manage customers' interaction and data. CRM software allows marketer or salesperson tracking every customer's interaction with company and collecting all the information, and also knows who their customer and track their history with the company. The benefit of using CRM uh, are identifying customers' need effectively, increase sales through a better timing due to anticipated need, increase value from our existing customer, and also reducing costs associated with servicing and supporting them. For example, we send emails about product promotion and combos regularly to our existing or regular customer to increase the company's sales.
Lastly, by implementing mobile payment, a business can transform from conventional platform to digital business operation. Mobile payment quicken and simplifies the payment method. The buyer will only need to scan the designated QR code, then enter PIN numbers or fingerprint scan to validate their payment. Besides that, the transactions are also automatically recorded in the bank transactions history, so the owner do not have to be worried about fraud being committed by their workers. Other than that, payment billed to saving accounts will generate interest revenue in the upcoming future. Following are the examples of mobile payment used in Malaysia. That's all from me. Thank you.